Hi, hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Karina, and today I'm going to be telling you all about my favorite books of 2025. I'm so excited because this is my first time filming a favorites of the year list, and I'm just so excited. I can't wait to gush about these books, recommend these books. Hopefully this will inspire you to pick some of these books up off of my list. Throughout 2025, I've read about 190 books, and I'm going to be telling you about my top 15 with a few honorable mentions. Now, as I was compiling my final list and ranking, I was a little bit surprised as to where some of these ended up on the list, mainly because of the variety in a few genres that aren't typically my favorites, but I couldn't leave them off. Compiling a list of favorites and ranking them is almost an impossible task for someone as indecisive as I am. So I'm very happy and I'm excited to kind of share what books made the cut for my favorites. So let's get into it. I'm gonna preface this by saying I might not remember everything from the books that I'm listing off. Quite a few on the list have been from the very start of the year. So I honestly kind of rank them based off of feeling and off of the vibes that I remember. And I put the ones that live rent-free in my mind since I finished them towards the top of the list. I'm so excited to talk through them. So let's jump in to my honorable mentions. So the first book on my honorable mentions list I want to talk about, because it is a holiday book and actually shocked the heck out of me with how much I absolutely adored it. And that book is Grace and Henry's Holiday Movie Marathon by Matthew Norman. This one shocked me with how much I absolutely adored it in the end, because when I go into a holiday book, I'm not expecting a 5-star read by any means. I think I go into them just expecting like a cutesy, fun time. But this one had so much emotional depth and I connected to these characters and I just really vibed with how the story was told, and this one ended up being 5 stars. Now in the story we're following Grace and Henry. Of course, we find out that they are both kind of grieving a spouse that has passed away, and their mothers kind of conspire to have them meet in hopes of them dating, and that doesn't happen. However, they end up forming a sweet friendship that is meant to kind of help each other heal on their grieving journey, and they also end up watching some holiday movies throughout the holiday season. One thing that I really loved about this book is how the author was able to kind of section this book into parts, and the parts are based off of beloved holiday movies. I really enjoyed how Matthew Norman was able to incorporate these holiday movies and leave little bits of the beloved classics into each part of the book, and I thought that was just so brilliantly done and just helped my enjoyment. I think there was only a few that I haven't seen at the time of reading it. Being able to pinpoint moments from the movies and the book itself, it was a fun little time. Grace is a single mother, so one thing that always gets me is seeing the love interest in a book form a special relationship. That sounds so bad, but they form a strong, I guess not a relationship, but they are there for the other's children in very meaningful ways. And the way this book made me laugh, this book was so funny, and I was not expecting to be laughing as much as I did based off of the plot of the book, but I absolutely had to mention this. I think this is a book that I will be revisiting every holiday season just because of the impact that it had on me. So I definitely recommend this one for the holiday season, and I absolutely loved it. Next up on my honorable mentions list is How to Fail at Flirting by Denise Williams. This was my first book by the author and will definitely not be my last because I love this. In the story, we're following Nia Turner, who is a professor, and her department at the university is kind of on the chopping block. To kind of take her mind off of her work situation and recovering from a toxic, abusive ex, her group of friends decides to take her out on the town to see if there is a chance for her to kind of jumpstart her romantic life back to life, essentially. During her night out, she meets Jake, who is a very sweet, wholesome man, and the two are kind of under the agreement that it will be a one-time hookup, but it ends up not happening, and they end up forming a pretty strong romantic connection. And I just really loved seeing the journey that Nia took from, you know, recovering from a past relationship and just blossoming into this newfound confident woman. And I just adored it. I just adored it. And Jake is such a sweet man. He was definitely like the perfect complementary partner that she needed. I just really loved it, and I think that if this one was on your radar, I would recommend picking it up, but also be cautious of some of the heavier themes, because even though this is kind of configured as a rom-com, it does deal with some pretty heavy topics, so just keep that in mind before jumping in. But I absolutely think that it is worth the read. The last book on my honorable mentions list is Coffin Moon by Keith Rosen. This was a definite surprise and just kind of blew me away with the storytelling and the absolute kind of brutality that this book had. So this is a historical horror set in the 70s in Oregon, and we're following Dwayne, who is a war vet. He is a bartender at the bar that his wife's family owns. One night he kind of stumbles upon a sketchy situation happening in the bar, and he kind of inserts himself into this predicament, and because of what Dwayne stumbles upon, that kind of sets the whole trajectory of the book itself. Dwayne is then thrust upon a revenge mission with his 13-year-old niece Julia. Their kind of relationship was just endearing, and Julia actually was my favorite character in the book, which is so funny to say, but she was just such badass for a 13-year-old. Like, I respected the hell out of her, and the choices that she made because of family, it did something to me. This is one of my favorite vampire stories as of late, and these are not the shiny glittery Twilight-esque ones. No, these are brutal and bloodthirsty and just kind of hateful in a sense. And honestly, I ate it up. I definitely loved it, and now I need to read more books from the author. But I could not fail to mention Coffin Moon because that one has stuck with me even now, and I read that back in October, so definitely had to mention that one. Now we've made it to the top 15 books that I read in 2025. Kicking off the favorites list. In my number 15 spot, I have The Finisher by Rue Nix. This is the fourth book in the Darkverse series, and the Darkverse series is quickly becoming a favorite, and this installment it was so good. It was so good. I don't want to give too much away because this is the fourth book in the series, but let me tell you about the first one. The first one is The Predator, and that book follows Tristan Kane and Marana Vitalio, and they are opposing mafia type of families, and it's like an enemies to lovers situation, some dark underground stuff going on in there. There is a lot of spice in these books. There are quite a few darker elements in here and like a dark underworld situation going on, but man, these books are so bingeable. It is following Alpha, and I don't want to spoil the relation to how this connects to the previous books, but he is very protective of women in his life and women in general. One of my favorite things about Alpha, to be completely honest. And his love interest is Zephyr. I just really loved their connection and their love for each other, because we kind of learn about a tie to each of their histories and kind of how that comes to light in the future. This was such a great continuation on into the series, and I definitely need to finish off the last two books because I just love the series. It is one that I think of often, just because I think it has like a romantic suspense element to it while also having a overall plot kind of connecting everything together, and I need to get back to it. I definitely recommend the Darkverse series if you are kind of into dark romances. If you love like a broody, eerie atmosphere that kind of has a lot of tension and just delicious spice, honestly. Definitely pick up the Darkverse series, and The Finisher, definitely one of my favorites in the series. Now we're up to my 14th spot, and that book is The Heartbreak Hotel by Eleanor Clover. This book kind of surprised me because romance is my top genre, and going into this, I was just, in the mood for romance, not knowing that this one would make it to my favorites list. So in the story, we're following Lou, who turned her rented house into a bed and breakfast specifically for people recovering from heartbreak in many different forms that we can kind of experience throughout life. The B&B is kind of a safe haven for the brokenhearted, and what she does is she kind of sets up an itinerary for people and their kind of different levels of engagement that they prefer. So she kind of sets out these questionnaires as soon as they check into the B&B and respects whatever their answers are to the questionnaire. We kind of see different characters maybe wanting to kind of isolate more or be out in nature and take hikes and just do kind of the different activities that she puts together for her guests. While helping the guests out, she also is able to kind of heal in her own way. Along her healing journey, she unexpectedly develops some feelings for the reclusive landlord Henry. We discover some secrets that both are kind of harboring. We get to see them kind of overcome their hidden parts of themselves and kind of grow into a strong couple in the end. This is definitely a story that I think of fondly, and I think the fall season is the perfect season to pick this up because this is set in like the mountains and it just was so good. It was so sweet and I really loved it. I definitely think I would be rereading this one sometime in the future. If this one has been on your list, I definitely recommend giving it a go. In my number 13 spot, I have Hostile Takeover by Christina C. Jones. This is an underrated book and I need more of y'all to read it, so hopefully this will encourage you to do so. In this story, we're following Nalani Stark, who is a heiress to a local grocery store. Nalani very much values legacy, especially when it is tied to her mother's memory. So when her mother's legacy is challenged, she is kind of forced to come to terms and accept an arrangement that she is less than thrilled about. Now we're also following Orion Sterling, who is the heir to the Starks' competitor. One day he kind of strolls into the Starks' head office and basically serves Nalani a proposal that she unfortunately cannot refuse, and that kind of leads to a marriage of convenience. I enjoy a marriage of convenience. Where romance kind of misses the mark for me, I would say 8 times out of 10 is a billionaire male main character. If anyone could convince me to love a billionaire, it is Miss Christina C. Jones, and this was proof of that. If you are someone that loves a my wife moment, someone that loves some good spice, some tension, some banter, you're gonna love this. You're gonna eat this one up. You're gonna eat it up as quickly as I did. I definitely will say that I was surprised by like the undertone of like a mafia vibe in this one. That was so unexpected and I loved it. If you were inspired to pick this up and you read it, please let me know all your thoughts. I need to know, okay? I need to know if you love this book and Orion Sterling as much as me. So in my number 12 spot is a book that pleasantly surprised me with how much I absolutely loved it, and it also made me cry, which was so unexpected. And let me tell you about it. The book in my number 12 spot is That's Not My Name by Megan Lally. I don't pick up much YA these days, but this one I did read for the Thrills and Chills book club earlier this year, and this has stuck with me ever since I finished. Do you remember when I said I cried at the end? I was not expecting that for a YA thriller. In the story, we're following a girl who wakes up on the side of the road with like no memory of what happened to her. She's kind of bruised, dirty, and has no clue what the heck is going on. So the police have no clue where the heck she came from until a man kind of frantically enters the station claiming that she is his daughter. He provides certain forms of ID and the cops kind of don't have anything to kind of keep her in the station. So she ends up going to her dad's house. Yeah, and things kind of take off from there. The twists and turns in this book definitely had my jaw on the floor. You know, for a YA thriller, this was so well written and kept me on the edge of my seat. And again, caused tears. I have read another book by the author since finishing this and enjoyed it, but this one definitely takes the cake, and I look forward to her new release in 2026. But yes, definitely a well-deserved spot on my favorites list. Number 11 on my list goes to Out of the Woods by Hannah Bonham Young. This has one of my absolute favorite tropes, and that is a marriage in crisis. This is a companion to Out on a Limb, and I do recommend reading that one first, because we do see Bo and Win, which are those characters in this book, and obviously it's going to spoil kind of romantic elements, I suppose. In the story, we're following Sarah and Caleb, who are high school sweethearts and have been together for so long that they are kind of in a rut in their relationship. To kind of get that spark back into their relationship, Sarah enrolls them into a wilderness retreat of sorts where you're off the grid and without electronics, and are just doing activities to strengthen your relationship and your bond. And we know that Sarah kind of feels maybe a little bit unseen in her relationship. To see Caleb's perspective and how Sarah has been like the one shining light in his life, and it just was so sweet. I loved seeing their love kind of grow stronger during this retreat, and sometimes it's kind of good to have something shake up your relationship in the best of ways, and this was just perfection in my eyes. And I love Sarah and Caleb. I love their love, and I cannot recommend this book enough. This one did make me cry, which is no surprise, but I absolutely loved it and highly recommend. We are now in my top 10 reads of the year. This is one I know you'll see on a lot of people's favorites of the year list, and it is very well deserved. And that book is Bat Eater and Other Names for Corzang by Kylie Lee Baker. Now this one, another surprise for me, having a horror on the list. Who am I? This was a fantastic read. Fantastic. When I read this, it was on KU, and I listened to the audiobook on Hoopla, so I didn't have a physical copy at the time, but I loved it so much I needed it. And I got this from someone off of Pango, and it was so cute because she put a little sticky note in it, and I forgot it was there until I opened it. So in the story, we're following Corzang, who is an Asian American, and this story takes place in COVID times. So there was a lot of hate to the Asian community, and honestly, there are probably still lingering effects of that to this day. Cora is a crime scene cleaner, which I thought was pretty interesting, seeing a career choice in that regard. But at the very beginning, and it's also in the synopsis, Cora witnesses the very brutal murder of her sister being pushed in front of a train. Because I like to go into books like blind, that moment took me by surprise. So while Cora is kind of, doing her job cleaning up these crime scenes, she sees and notices these different bat carcasses, and like a prevalent thing that happened during the height of COVID is Asians were called very disgusting names, and Bat Eater was one of them. And when she starts noticing these bat carcasses at the crime scenes and different similarities, like threads that could be tying these deaths together, she kind of takes it upon herself to solve these strings of murders towards Asians, because the police aren't taking it seriously. They're not doing their due diligence and trying to find out what is going on behind the scenes. So Kylie and a few of her friends are trying to solve these murders and find out what the cause could be. Not only that, but the Hungry Ghost Festival is quickly approaching, and she kind of decides to ignore her aunt's warnings about that, because the Hungry Ghost Festival is when the gates of hell open, and there's certain precautions that need to be done, otherwise you'll be targeted. And the way that Kylie Lee Baker was able to kind of tie everything together was so amazing, and just really enlightened me on some of the traditions, the culture. And there's a scene that really sticks out in my head that creeps me the F out. Like, it haunts me even a little bit to this day. I was scared to read at night, I'm not even gonna lie to you, because some of these scenes were set up and done so well that I was scared. This was a pleasant surprise, and it was so good that I needed to own a physical copy. If you still haven't read this one, I definitely think you should give it a try, because it was outstanding. In my number 9 spot, I have The Invocations by Crystal Sutherland. This one, again, took me by surprise because I was not expecting to love it as much as I do. Now, this is a young adult thriller, but it also has some pretty gruesome horror elements that follows 3 different characters, one of which is Zara, who's recently lost her sister and is trying to do anything she can to bring her sister back to life. Another character we're following is Jude, who is the daughter of a billionaire that has a very real curse upon her, and she cannot figure out for the life of her how to get rid of this curse. Our third POV is Emer, who is a witch with a dark past and a deadly power that just might be the solution to both Zara and Jude's problems. Emer is able to thrust invocations on women who are trying to get out of violent situations. In order for her to give these invocations to her client, they have to sacrifice a piece of their soul in order to have access to Ymir's powers. So when Ymir's clients start turning up dead all over the city, she has to find out why and ends up forming a tenuous alliance with both Jude and Zara before providing them assistance to their current predicaments. One of my favorite things about the story were the feminist themes, and I loved that the author didn't shy away from like the brutality that women face on a day-to-day basis, let alone in these different circumstances. So this was just a powerful read that kind of has stuck with me and is one that is the perfect spooky season read. I did pick this one up in October, and it was the absolute perfect time because of the atmosphere that the author created and just the different horror elements that came to light. I was pleasantly surprised and blown away with another book by the author. Definitely well earned in my number 9 spot. In my number 8 spot, I have a book that might have made me shed the most tears throughout the year, and that book is My Friends by Frederick Bachman. Apparently I decided it was a good idea to tab this book. I didn't realize how much I annotated this. I gotta stop because I will see something in it and I will cry. Essentially, this story at its root is about a group of 4 teenagers who form a bond that kind of transcends time and affects a stranger's life 25 years in the future. That's kind of all I want to leave you with because this book is so much more than that. It is. And if you've read Frederick Bachman, you know how amazing he is at weaving these stories where you just fall in love with these characters and are able to just believe that they're real people. And this story, my gosh, the amount of tears I cried, and I wish I could tell you why, but you're gonna have to read it and find out. The friendships and the found family at the core of the story with these friends was just so beautiful, and there was like a mystery element kind of woven in that was just, it was just so good. I love that the cover, it has a very deep meaning to the story itself, and I just adore that. I just adore it so much. Frederick Bachman just has a way of pulling out such deep, visceral emotions with his storytelling, and I will forever be amazed by that, honestly, because every book I've read from him, I've sobbed at. So fair warning, going in. But I'm glad this was a buddy read because I was able to talk to my friend about it as we were kind of going through it and experiencing these very sad moments. For myself and my friend, we had a hard time going back into it purely for the fact that it was just devastating. It was a devastating read and it was hard to pick back up, but I had to because I needed to know what the friend group was getting into next, and it just goes to show like how much friendship can like pull you out of such devastating circumstances. And if I talk about it anymore, I might cry. So definitely on my list of favorites. So in my number 7 spot, I have a book by an author that is quickly becoming a favorite author of mine. And in my number 7 spot, I have Promise Me Sunshine by Cara Bastone. In the story, we are following Lenny, who recently lost her best friend to cancer, and we see her just kind of wading through life in the absolute pits of grief. So far deep into grief that she's barely living, like just getting through each day, having trouble kind of finding the light in life again. And one day she meets a very grumpy stranger who promises that they can kind of help each other in their current circumstances. And he helps Lenny get a babysitting gig that, lo and behold, catapults her life kind of back on track. She ends up spending more time with this grumpy stranger named Miles. Slowly we get to see that spark for life come back, and it was just so beautiful. It was just the journey that we see Lenny take from being in the deep throes of grief to kind of finding the light again and feeling the sunshine on her face, so to speak. You can't help but fall in love with Cara's characters, and this was no exception. It was just so heartbreaking seeing how much Lenny was struggling because, like, losing a best friend, like, you can only imagine how devastating of a loss that is. And we see how unrooted Lenny is in life and just kind of wandering through her day-to-day, living life basically on a thread. It was an amazing thing to see Lenny get that spark back and just start living again with a renewed purpose. And Miles was just her constant companion, whether she wanted him to be or not. He was like that beacon of light and that strong, steadfast support that she needed. Their friendship blossoms into a romance, and it was just so well done. It was so beautiful, and I feel like I'm gonna cry if I think about this too much, because you know, we all have our own journeys with grief in our different facets of life, and this was just a story that leaves off on such a hopeful note that I think could really be helpful for so many people. So I absolutely needed to have this on my favorites list. 100%. It's definitely a favorite. So in my number 6 spot, I actually have 2 books. I could not choose one, so they're both on there. Okay. And the 2 books I have are Unsteady and Unloved by Payne Curran. Now, Unsteady is the first one, and they are both hockey romances. The first one follows Reese and Sadie. Reese is the hotshot hockey player on campus, and after a scary situation from the last season, he experiences panic attacks anytime he tries to get on the ice. Sadie is a figure skater, and Reese enlists her help in trying to get over that anxiety that he still has anytime he tries to skate. The first one's beautiful because both Reese and Sadie are kind of dealing with tenuous family situations. Them together was just magic. Like, they were just magic, and it was beautiful. That's beautiful. Okay, what else can I say? I loved it. I loved it. In Unloved, we are following Ro and Freddie. Freddie is kind of known as a womanizer, has a stellar reputation in bed, and is basically failing in his classes because his education is basically needing help. He enlists Ro's help to kind of tutor him, and the two form a very beautiful friendship. And the craziest thing is, like, both of these titles kind of coming into play with the story, seeing everything kind of click together was just so mind-blowing. And I feel like I might be a little more partial to Unloved, because one thing about me is I started my One Tree Hill journey this year, and this gives absolute immaculate Nayli vibes. I think I was able to connect to these stories because they both had such emotional depth and dealt with such deeper themes than like a surface level hockey romance that really took me by surprise. And I couldn't help but root for these characters and fall in love with them. And I know I've said that, you know, probably for every single book, but this one, just the series, is on my favorites and is a favorite of mine. But yes, if you are someone that loves the Off-Campus series by Elle Kennedy, I think you'll absolutely devour these, because these kind of gave me the similar vibes to Off-Campus with the kind of deeper themes hidden within the storyline, and these will have you crying, and I need you to read them. Okay, go ahead and pick them up and thank me later. Now we're in the top 5 territory. So let me tell you about my number 5 pick, and that is The X-Files by Jessica Joyce. This has a second chance, and second chance is probably one of my absolute favorite tropes, and this proved exactly why that is. In the story, we're following 2 exes as they are gathering for their best friend's wedding. Throughout this week of setting up for the wedding and making sure everything is ready for the ceremony to come, a string of disasters and unfortunate happenings start to occur, and we are following Georgia and Eli as they're dealing with trying to solve all these problems before the wedding comes. And this was just so good. It was so good. There were so many parts in here that were just so hilarious that I just can't help thinking of. These 2 characters, Eli and Georgia, you could like feel the electricity between them. You could feel the chemistry that is still lingering even after all these years of them being apart. They were just so cute. I love this friend group and how they were kind of conspiring to make things happen between these 2 exes. I feel like books surrounding like weddings are just kind of have a magical element all on their own, and I just absolutely love this. I read this for my romance book club earlier this year, the SWOONY readers. I will leave all of our information down below in case you want to join us for any of our New Year picks. This is just a book that will have you turn those pages and have you wanting to finish this in one sitting. It was just that good. The humor in here kind of paired with some romantic moments, and it was just so good that you'll just want to eat it up as fast as possible, and that was definitely the case for me with this book. Definitely deserving that number 5 spot, and I actually think about rereading this all the time. So if that's not a testament to how much I love this book, I don't know what is, but I absolutely 100% recommend. And my number 4 spot is my new favorite book boyfriend in this series, which is crazy because the second book was hard to beat. It was hard to beat, but my number 4 spot goes to Play Along by Miss Liz Tomforte. Yeah, Isaiah Rhodes. Isaiah Rhodes is that man. He is the book boyfriend of all boyfriends, in my opinion. He just is. Okay, this is book 4 in the Windy City series that I absolutely love. One of my favorites, absolutely one of my favorites. I have not read Rio's book, okay? I'm scared. I don't want the series to end. I want to prolong the series as long as possible, and that's why I have not read it yet. But we're following Isaiah Rhodes and Kennedy K. Isaiah has been in love with Kennedy for a while, okay? A long while, maybe years even. So we do get to see their interactions in Caught Up, which is the previous book in the series, and we can just see he is so down bad for Kennedy, okay? And she just does not give him any time of day. She doesn't entertain any of his flirting. In this one, there is a trip to Las Vegas, and what happens in Vegas does not stay in Vegas because the two get married and are kind of having to navigate the consequences of that, honestly. And it was just so good. Just seeing how devoted to Kennedy Isaiah was is just a dream, you know? And the way that his theme song is Obsessed by Mariah Carey, that is Isaiah, obsessed. It was just so funny, and just kind of seeing their journey of a mutual requited love was so good. It was just so good, and I think of this book fondly. I think of it often, if I'm honest. And I just adore it. I adored this continuation in the series, and again, I'm devastated that it's ending. Play Along, absolutely in my number 4 spot, and Isaiah Rhodes and Kennedy are just, they're everything, and I adore them. Here we are in the top 3, and 3 is my favorite number, and it only makes sense. I mean, this was not planned or intended in that way, but it only makes sense for it to be one of my absolutely favorite authors. So my number 3 spot goes to Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. This book was, I'm gonna say it, it was a surprise, okay? Actually took me some time to fully get into the story because we are following 3 different POVs, 3 different female characters spanning decades and probably even centuries at this point. We jump in, and it's 1532. Medea is obviously living in a time where women have no autonomy. They are basically raised to then be someone's wife. And Maria decides that's not the life she wants and takes fate into her own hands, and let's just say vampires are involved. We also are following Charlotte, who Maria crosses paths with many years later. Our 3rd POV is Alice, who is more in the present day. It's 2019, I believe, when she is introduced. I know everyone always pitches this book as toxic lesbian vampires, but truly it is so much more than that. There is female rage and the growth of womanhood as individuals, like throughout the centuries. The way that V.E. Schwab was able to kind of tell this story and tie in 3 different timelines was just stupendous. It was just immaculate in the way that they did it. I actually did read this for the Fiction Falls book club earlier this year, so I'm gonna go ahead and link that live show down below in case you want even more in-depth thoughts. But I discussed this with my friends Clint and Amanda, and we had such an amazing discussion. I think the live show was like 2 hours, but there was just so much to be said about this book, and this definitely took me some time to kind of get invested in the story and connect with the characters. But once it clicked, like, I was enthralled and I was captivated and needed to know what was going to happen next. Like, this doesn't shy away from some gruesome scenes. There's definitely a little bit of spice in here as well. It is over 500 pages, but I felt like once I was in the story, I was captivated and needed to keep going to find out what was happening. It was beautiful. There was romance to root for. You're rooting for these characters to get their vengeance and to right the wrongs that were done to them, and it was just so captivating. I will forever be in awe of V. Schwab and the absolute brilliance of their writing. There were so many quotes in here that I just loved. If you love female rage, I think you're really gonna enjoy this one. It is on the slower side. If you can, give it a little bit of time, because soon enough the story's gonna suck you in and you'll be racing to the finish line, and I don't think you'll regret it. So now we're down to my top 2 absolute favorite reads of 2025. To be honest, it took some time for me to figure out which would end up as number 1, but as of now I'm pretty confident in my ranking. So in my number 2 spot, I have one that is so popular and for such good reason. And that book is Don't Let the Forest In by C.G. Drews. Such a beautiful, macabre YA horror that follows Andrew and Thomas. So Andrew and Thomas are attending this academy that is surrounded by woods that the students are forbidden to enter. Andrew writes these very dark fairy tales, and Thomas kind of brings them to life through art and drawings. One day Andrew follows Thomas out into the forbidden wood and discovers him fighting off these monsters that Thomas has drawn and brought to life. These monsters end up targeting people that are close to Thomas, and students end up dropping dead because of them, and Andrew and Thomas are kind of left to figure out how to stop these monsters from attacking all the people that they love most. This book is so beloved, and for such good reason. Number 1, I know you probably have already seen, but there are illustrations of these macabre creatures that Thomas draws, and here's one of them. Horrific and amazing, to be honest. Just so beautiful, because we get to see Thomas and Andrew's friendship, and we kind of feel the tension that maybe something more could be there, but one or both of them are kind of fighting that attraction, and it was just beautiful and haunting and just so well done. And wow, like, the writing, impeccable. This is definitely a story that has stuck with me and kind of haunted me since I finished it. I did read this earlier, like I think in the first quarter of the year, and have just been thinking about this. Like, this has always been at the back of my mind because of how much I loved it. The yearning between the two, it just was delectable. I was just left rooting for both Andrew and Thomas and hoping that they would just kiss already, and maybe they did. Maybe they did. I don't read many YA books, but this one just blew me away and absolutely deserves my number 2 spot on the list. So if this one has been on your radar, I encourage you to pick it up, because this was just so beautiful and I think you'll love it too. Now I can finally tell you what my number 1 favorite book of the year is, and honestly, this was probably the first book that I knew as soon as I started it would be a 5-star and would be on my favorites list. How amazing, because I read this in February and this has just stayed at the top of my mind, one that I constantly want to reread. Goodness knows why I haven't reread it yet, but this just had such a powerful and emotional impact on me, It was just so beautiful. I cried so many tears. And the book that is sitting at the top of my list is When I Think of You by Maya Ariel. Now in this book, we're following Kalia, who is a receptionist at a major film company. One day while she's working, a familiar face saunters in the door, and lo and behold, it is her ex and college sweetheart who is working on a film about his parents' love story and wants to work with her company. And he kind of presents Kalia the opportunity to work on the film, and maybe the two start developing those long hidden feelings, and something, you know, something magical happens. One thing I love about this story that reminded me of Real by Miss Kennedy Ryan, my absolute romance queen. This story had the element of this project that is being worked on and coming to the big screen. There were snippets woven throughout that I just absolutely loved and appreciated, because we get to see kind of how the film correlates and ties into their shared history in college. It was just so perfect in my eyes and made me sob, crying so many times throughout this book. I can't even tell you why. This one just touched my heart because, like, we get to see the two characters come together again in a different phase of their life, but we get to see kind of their growth, like, separately, and when they come together, how well they just go together. Like, you know, like, they're just the perfect pair. This one does kind of deal with some heavier topics, of course, like misogyny in the industry and racism, to name a few, but this just was so beautiful and so perfect for me, and I just can't help but put this at the top. Like, this has just resonated with me on such a deep level that it's hard to compare. You know, it's hard to beat. I wouldn't feel right if this wasn't my favorite book, if that even makes any sense. I am just yearning for a reread, and I just want more people to read it. If you are someone that loved Real by Kennedy Ryan, I think you would enjoy this one wholeheartedly. Just am so thankful to have found this book when I did. I think it was also a serendipitous timing of when I read this. The stars aligned when I picked this book up and when I started it, and I just knew early on that this was going to be 5 stars, that this was going to be on my favorites list, and I'm just so happy that that feeling has struck true and that this is at the top of my list. I look forward to reading the author's newest book and look forward to what the author puts out in the future, because she just really crafted a well-rounded romance with some heavier themes, with, you know, another second chance romance that I absolutely adored. I just love these characters. I love this romance, and I cannot recommend this one enough. Those were my top 15 books of 2025, along with a few honorable mentions. I'm just so happy for the amazing 5-star new favorites that I've discovered this year, and I look forward to finding even more favorites in the new year. Thank you so much for watching and hanging out with me as I gushed over my absolute favorite books of the year. I'd love to hear if you read any of these, or if any of these are now on your radar. Please let me know down below. If you're still watching and you want to let me know, feel free to leave a purple heart emoji in honor of not only my favorite color, but When I Think of You. I hope you have a lovely day, afternoon, or night whenever you're watching, and I'll see you again soon in another video. Until next time.